This is the meeting for the Municipality of Anchorage Planning and Zoning Commission for May 7th, 2012 at 6:30 p.m. At the Lusac Library. May I have the Secretary call the roll, please?
Connie Yoshimura,
Here.
Bruce Phelps,
Here.
Stacy Dean,
Here.
Terry Parks,
Here.
Dana Pruz, Richard Wilson,
Here.
Ray Hickle,
Here.
Peter Mulcahy.
Here.
Okay. We have minutes for Monday, April 2nd, 2012. May I have a motion for approval, please? It's moved by Commissioner Parks, seconded by Stacy Dean. Are there any corrections or comments to the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, those minutes are approved. Vice Chair Parks, may we have the special order of business, please?
Disclosures for Mr. Phelps.
Yes, I was not present at the April 2nd meeting and will be abstaining from voting on resolutions 2012-016 and 2012-017.
Thank you. Dean?
No.
Mr. Hickle?
Yes, I was not in attendance of the March 5th, 2012 meeting for Resolution 2012-14, and I will be abstaining.
Any others? Okay. Commissioner Mulcahy?
I'm trying to find the case number here. I am an employee of URS, and URS has supported the petitioner on, is that 52? But I have not worked on that project and have no prior knowledge.
Do you have any issues with voting on this?
None.
Commissioner Wilson? None. I have none. Commissioner Yoshimura?
Yes, in the matter of case 2012-052, I wish to disclose that I have had prior business relationships with the petitioner as an associate broker listing and selling properties. I am not a party to this transaction and have no financial interest in it.
Thank you.
I would like to, under a special order of business, discuss with the commissioners just briefly the summer schedule. So I believe the Secretary has laid on the table Planning and Zoning Commission meeting schedule. As you can see, what's happening on June 4th, which has already been discussed, and June 11th. On the June 4th meeting at 6:30 p.m., we will be having Title 21 deliberations, and those will take place for the first hour to hour and a half at the beginning of the meeting. So if you have a case that is going to appear on June 4th, please be advised that the first hour to hour and a half will be taken up with Title 21 deliberations, and it looks like we have a lot of issues that we're going to be dealing with, so I would suggest that all the commissioners get a good night's rest the night before, because it might be a late night. And we will be continuing our Title 21 deliberations on June 11th. I'd like to discuss the Commissioner's 4th of July schedule. The first Monday in July is July 2nd. The 4th of July falls in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. I would like to know if the Commission would like to actually meet on July 2nd, or if you would like to have our first regularly scheduled meeting for casework to be on July 9th. I'd like to poll the commissioners. So let's start. Mr. Phelps?
Well, I would actually prefer to keep the July 2nd meeting just because the amount of work we have in front of us. Otherwise, I would not be making that recommendation.
Okay. Ms. Dean?
I'll go either way.
Okay.
I'd prefer to meet July 2nd. I'll be out of town from the 7th to the 17th, so I'm already missing the July 9th meeting.
Okay, Commissioner Parks?
I'm okay with the second. That'll work for
Okay.
me.
All right. Commissioner Wilson, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate you on your new appointment as the Director of the Port. We're going to miss you. Thank you for all the work you've done on Title 21 on our behalf and the other comments and casework that you've done for us. I won't ask you what you're doing on July 2nd.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm
Mr.
available on July 2nd.
Huh? All right, so we are keeping our regularly scheduled meeting for July 2nd. Thank you very much. The July 9th, the Anchorage Wetlands Management Plan work session is at 5:30. I would like to suggest that we will have finished with Title 21, and we've been working really hard, and we'll be somewhat burnt out, if I could use an old expression. Does anyone besides me want to postpone the Wetlands Management Plan work session? Okay.
I would recommend that we postpone it to the next regular meeting.
All right, thank you very much. So that is now postponed to August 6th, where we'll have the work session. And that brings the Wetlands Management Plan hearing to September, which would be probably September 17th, I think, since September 10th will be our regular case meeting. All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate you sharing your schedules with me. We're on to the consent agenda items, resolutions for approval, and others. How does the commission wish to proceed?
Madam Chair, I would like to pull 5A and B for public hearing into the future and ask staff to be able to put that on the agenda in the future. Okay,
Okay.
we'll do that.
Right. Commissioner Parks,
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
seconded by Ms. Dean.
Now I
Ms.
would like to pull,
Okay.
if I could pull 5A and B.
All right. Thank you very much. And you, so is there any objection to any of the other items for approval? Seeing and hearing none, all the other items, resolutions, number 1, A, B, and C, are approved. Mr. Parks, would you like to speak to 5A and B?
Yes, I would. We've had several requests for public hearings for both of these cases, and I believe they're large enough and have enough community interest that we ought to hear that public hearing at another meeting. And I'm speaking to both case 2012-048 and case number 2012-049.
All right, thank you. Is there a second for that motion? Is it a motion? It's not in the form of a motion, please. All right, thank you. And it is seconded by Ms. Dean. Does anyone have any objections to holding a public hearing? Would anyone like to speak to the motion? I don't see anyone in the queue, so I will direct staff, the commission directs staff to schedule public hearings for case 2012-048 and case 2012-049. Does staff have any comments at this time regarding either one of those cases? Ms. Ferguson.
No, Madam Chair, we'll get those scheduled.
All right. Thank you very much. Under unfinished business, moving on to E1, case S11550-2, the petitioner is North Anchorage Real Estate Investors. It's a time extension for a plat approved by P&Z Commission. This is not a public hearing. This was scheduled for approval at last month's meeting, and it was pulled for additional information regarding the landscaping. Could we just have a brief report from staff, just reviewing the comments that were made? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have provided the commission with a memo regarding the landscaping requirements. The petitioner, Aaron Zuzak from North Anchorage Real Estate Investors, also provided a clarifying memo, and he is here today if the commission wishes to direct questions to the petitioner. Basically, there were two questions regarding landscape as I see it. First, did the petitioner plant what they said that they would plant in the originally approved site plan? And in my memo, I described, yes, that they did plant what they said that they would plant, and it's consistent with the approved site plan and the minimum landscaping requirements. The second question would be, how is that landscaping surviving to date? And at this time, it's difficult to determine that because of the season. I did pull the building permits and drive through the site to spot check things, and for the most part, I found that it was consistent. There were some planting beds which were deficient, and land use reviews the installed landscaping prior to receiving a certificate of occupancy. So that's the update.
I just have a couple of questions for you. First of all, is there any bonding or is there any other financial vehicle in place to ensure that this landscaping and this prominent location sort of at the gateway to Anchorage is going to be maintained?
Madam Chair, I believe in some land uses like some storage facilities require some kind of bonding, but not in this case. There is no financial hook to ensure that the landscaping continues. The hook is that if one has a complaint, to go through land use enforcement and have the landscaping inspected, and the landowner is responsible for maintaining the landscaping.
Okay. I have just one other question. I don't see anyone else in the queue. So the landscaping standard for Takotnu Commons, is that the same standard that was applied for Glen Abbey Square or Glen Square? Because Glen Square, it looks a lot better as far as landscaping is concerned than Takotnu Commons. And so they weren't that far apart as far as development was concerned. So did the landscaping standards diminish when were they changed? Because on one hand, you have Glen Square, which has exceedingly nice landscaping, well-maintained, nice calibra trees, et cetera. And then in Takotnu Commons, you don't have much at all. So what happened in between those two developments? Do you know?
Madam Chair, there was no change in the minimum landscaping standards between the time those two were developed. I'm not sure which one came first. Of course, it's up to the individual petitioner to choose to exceed our minimum requirements. The other thing I just want to point out that I mentioned in the memo is that in the Title 21 rewrite, one of the things that's being proposed is increasing the amount of landscaping for large parking lots. Right now, I believe it says in parking lots that have 200 parking spaces or more, the minimum interior landscaping would go up to 10%. Takotnu Commons has 4,500 parking spaces. So when you get to a parking lot of that scale, which is much bigger than the other shopping mall you talked to, 5% may not be enough.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's very good information, and we will look at those landscaping requirements for large shopping center parking lots in our, is it chapter, tell me the chapter, is it 7?
It's in Chapter 7 under Design Standards.
Good. Thank you very much. We'll be looking at that at our next work session. May I have a motion for approval for the time extension for a plat approved for S11550-2 if there are no other comments from commissioners? Mr. Parks. A motion for approval?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, and a second by Commissioner Mulcahy. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, that motion is approved. Okay, we're moving on to our regular agenda. We are now going to open the public hearing, and the procedure by which the public may speak to the commission at its meetings is, 1, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules of procedures. A, petitioners, including all his/her representatives, 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. B, representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, 5 minutes. C, individuals, 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked by questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission's final decision. Any individual may request written findings from any commission decision within 7 days. So, the public hearing is now open, case 2012-050. May we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 12 of your packet is a zoning map, and it shows where the petition site is located on Diamond Boulevard between Arctic and Vernon Street. The Community Development Department finds that the standards for a rezone are met, including conformance to the comprehensive plan. A draft assembly ordinance regarding the rezone, which would be forwarded to the Assembly for a second public hearing. That draft ordinance is on page 9 of the packet. The proposed rezone to B1A would provide a clear overriding benefit to the public by providing neighborhoods serving commercial as well as preserving mixed-use development potential within walking distance of residential lots. The department recommends approval of the rezoning to B1A. A traffic study of the site as a commercial use is found on page 32 of your packet. I'd be happy to give a more in-depth presentation if you like, and also the petitioners here to make a presentation and answer questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions of staff? Francis from the commission. Ms. Dean.
Through the chair, my question of staff is, I thought it was going to be 3, not B1.
Thank you for asking the question. Through the chair, Ms. Dean, the petitioner had a pre-application meeting and prepared an application requesting rezoning to B3. They submitted that application. The case was then assigned to a different planner. It was a fresh look at it, and we had a post-application meeting very early on. And the department, we, after having looked at the application, were not supportive of the B3 zoning. And in an abundance of caution and good neighborliness on the part of the owner, decided to change his request from B3 to a rezoning to B1A. And so there we have on one of the pages in here, they're requesting the rezone to B1A. The department is supportive of that request.
Are there any other questions of staff? All right, could we hear from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative, please? Would you please clearly state your name? If it's more than one syllable, would you spell it for the benefit of us? And how much time would you like for rebuttal?
Madam Chair, we would like to reserve 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is John Isaacs. I'm a senior planner with URS. With me is the client's representative, Brian Broderick, with Prudential. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I think the staff has given a very good staff report. It's a relatively small and undeveloped piece of property that would be considered infill since there's no other vacant undeveloped land nearby. And as staff indicated, our original action was to request a B3, but after meeting with staff, we would agree with a recommendation for B1A. In practice, as Brian Broderick will tell you, there really has been little real estate interest in the site as a residential property. Direct exposure to the heavy traffic noise at Diamond and Arctic makes it unsuitable for residential development, and it should remain vacant for that very reason. Staff has also mentioned we have a traffic analysis we prepared as part of this. Since the area is really largely developed, there's not going to be much in the way of any future background traffic increases, and that access would be provided by Arctic Boulevard and by Vernon. It doesn't involve any direct street access through the neighborhood or any driveway access off of Diamond. If I may, Madam Chair, I just have one graphic I'd like to pass out, which is a clarification on what's on page 31 of your packet. And it's just a slightly more clear representation of some of the property characteristics. So what I'd like to do at this time is have Brian talk a little bit about the property history, the site characteristics, and why the rezone is being requested.
Good evening. My name is Brian Broderick, last name Broderick. I'm an agent with Prudential Real Estate. I was requested from the owner of this property, which is the Church Extension Program in Salem, Oregon, to market the property for sale. The property has been for sale now collectively with 4 different brokers, including myself, for 4 years, actually between 2006 and 2010. The parcel is currently zoned R2M. And one of the distinctions I like to make is that the parcel is located at the southeast corner of Arctic and Diamond, and we have B1A to the north, B1A to the east, and B3 property to the west. And this particular site is zoned R2M, and there is R2M property immediately to the south of this lot, the subject property, but there is about between 15 and 20 foot elevation difference between the subject property and the adjacent R2M property. Collectively, it's been 1,137 days for marketing. With me tonight, I have the names of 19 different individuals that contacted me during my roughly 196 days of marketing the property. And the feedback that I got was, I can't sell it as R2 because nobody wants to take a chance of building a multi-unit there. And as far as commercial, it's not zoned commercial, therefore it couldn't be developed as commercial. I do have several parties interested in callbacks if indeed the rezoning is passed. But at this point, there's no investors that would step forward. I could name certain investors that I've contacted that have no interest in the property as residential use. It's a 1.25 acre parcel. Density-wise, we could put 22 units at the corner of Arctic and Diamond. We are willing to certainly accept a B1A zoning over the B3.
Madam Chair, one thing for the record, we did meet with the Taco Campbell Community Council about 2 weeks ago. They were not able to prepare a resolution. There wasn't time to do so, but we did make a presentation to them. They did take an informal vote. They did support, with a voice vote, hand vote, zoning this to B1A. They've asked for our assistance in preparing a resolution for them for their next meeting, so we will be working on that for them so they can bring that to the Assembly when it goes to that for action. So I guess with that, we appreciate the effort done by staff, a very thorough report, and agree with the recommendations. We appreciate your consideration of this action before you, and if you have any questions, we would be glad to answer them.
Mr. Parks.
I have a question for you on access to this property. I know you're not going to have access off of Diamond. How do you plan on getting people off and on this piece of property?
The access would be both off of Arctic and Vernon. If you look at the traffic report, it's addressed probably in a couple pieces of that. There probably would be a need to break the median on Arctic to get off and on that property, but that's something we've talked to the Muni about and also DOT, and it's something they support.
Okay. But nothing off of Diamond, is that
Nothing
correct?
off of Diamond.
Okay. And the property is narrow to the east, and it narrows down considerably. Do you envision it being a parking in a building and having no building on the frontage and the building on the back, kind of directly across from the existing restaurant?
Brian, if you'd like to address that.
Previously, in meeting with the Taku Community Council, we did discuss parking on that east-west corridor closer to Vernon. At this point, we do not have any site plans, nor do we have a buyer that would indicate a preference. But I do believe that parking, that is the best use of space. Correct.
Thank you.
And I think in one of the previous potential uses of this was a church, and they did indeed look at that thin location for parking with a church on the main portion of the lot.
Through the chair, is this the same church that cleared the property a few years back, or is this a different church that owns it now?
The previous owner of the property that lost the property through deed in lieu of foreclosure was the Samoan Assembly, and they had assembled some parcels there. They did clear the ground. They're no longer entitled to the property.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so thank you very much. You have 5 minutes left. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So is there anyone here who would like to speak to this matter? If so, please come forward. Anyone at all? All right, seeing and hearing no one. Does the petitioner have anything else that they would like to say before we close the public hearing?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, the public hearing is now closed. What is the wish of the commission on case 2012-050? Commissioner Parks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 12050, church extension plan. A motion to approve, and there are no restrictions to this. I don't believe. Yep, there are no restrictions. It is a motion to rezone. I'm sorry. Thank you.
And it's seconded by Commissioner Phelps. Commissioner Phelps, do you have any comment you want to make? Any findings of fact? Also, Mr. Parks?
The land use plan map for the 1982 comprehensive plan identifies this as residential. But what we've heard this evening is that there's been really an inability to develop the site for residential purposes and for reasons of noise and access and other considerations. And based upon what we heard this evening, it seems to make more sense and would be in the overall public interest to better develop the site as B1A. And moreover, there's a considerable amount of adjacent property that is zoned B1A, and it'd be a continuation of that pattern.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Parks, any other further comment? All right, so, yes, you may.
Commissioner Phelps, just a point of clarification. You were mentioning that it was B1 instead of B3?
No, it's B1A.
B1A?
The application was changed from B3 to B1A. Yeah. Okay.
I just needed to be clear on that. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Are there any other comments? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, congratulations. Motion is approved. All right, so moving on to case 2012-052, the petitioner is John Peterson. The request is rezoning to R2M, multiple family residential district, 1/2 acres. May we hear from staff? Ms. O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to rezone Lot 3A, Tract 8, William Lloyd subdivision from B3 with special limitations to R2M. It's located south of Diamond and east of Noblewood Drive. It is a 1/2 acre parcel that was originally developed with a single-family dwelling. The dwelling was demolished in 2005. The site is now vacant. The parcel is level, and it is not impacted by any sensitive environmental features. The site was originally zoned R2 in 1972 during the area-wide rezoning, but in '84 it was rezoned to B3SL as well as lots 1 and 2 that adjoin the east boundary of this particular site. And that was subject to special limitations, which are listed on page 5 of the report. In terms of conformance, it does conform to Anchorage 2020 and the draft West Anchorage District Plan. It specifically conforms to policies number 2 and 3, 5, 7, 8, and 11. The rezone request to R2M matches the zoning of the property and the surrounding area, and the proposed residential development will have less of an impact on the neighborhood than the uses that would be allowed under the B3 SL zoning. The site is located in an urban area. It's served by all public utilities with the exception of storm drain. The proposed density matches that which was recommended in the 1982 Comprehensive Development Plan. And the request, if approved, will return the property to a residential district, thereby serving as a net gain to residential acreage in southwest Anchorage. There would be no adverse effect on land use patterns, as the majority of the surrounding area is residentially developed. The property fronts onto West Diamond Boulevard. West Diamond is a major arterial at this location. It's owned and maintained by the state of Alaska, and it's unlikely that there would be a driveway permit issued to access West Diamond. In fact, the special limitations of the B3 zoning prohibited direct vehicular access to Diamond Boulevard. So vehicular access would be to Noblewood Street. That is a municipal right-of-way. Drainage, both any road improvements and a drainage analysis will be required and addressed with the preliminary plat that was reviewed today. Today was the reviewal date, to subdivide this half-acre parcel into 3 lots. So drainage analysis will be required as part of the building permit, as well as any road improvements would be a building permit issue. The proposed development could occur in 2012 pending approval of the rezone petition and the preliminary plat, which was approved under the abbreviated plat process. Therefore, the department does recommend approval of the request to rezone Lot 3A to R2M, multiple family residential district, as there won't be any adverse effect on the distribution of land uses. And as the other R2M zone property in the surrounding area had no special limitations attached to it, it's recommended that this be rezoned to the similar district as the surrounding neighborhood. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, so the preliminary plat was an administrative site plan review because it is less than 6 lots. Is that my understanding?
Madam Chair, it was approved as a short plat process,
Okay.
and because it met the standards for an abbreviated plat.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of staff at this time? Seeing and hearing none, may we hear from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative?
Yes, my name is John Peterson, Madam Chair, and we are the petitioner. This is my wife, Micheline Peterson. We have owned this particular property for approximately 7 years and had originally intended for a different use for it. However, at this time we see that it would be most suitable to use this for a purpose that is more like the surrounding residential units, and so we would move to ask that this is approved as a rezone to an R2M.
Are there questions of the petitioner? Well, you have 9 minutes and 23 seconds left.
I've prepared a song and dance.
Okay.
All right, so we'll see if there's people in the audience that would like to testify. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on case 2012-052? Would you please come forward at this time? Seeing and hearing no one. Commissioner Phelps. Well, first I have to ask if the petitioner has anything else that he would like to say in his 9 minutes and 23 seconds left. No. All right. Thank you. So the public hearing is now closed. Commissioner Phelps.
In this request to rezone one tract of land from B3SL to R2M, I would move for the approval of the rezoning to that classification for that particular lot. The rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The development that's proposed is consistent with the adjacent land uses, and with the subdivision process that's going to occur probably subsequent to this, the adverse impacts, if any, occur, and they may be related to drainage, will be dealt with at that time. For these reasons, I think the best interest of the community would be served by rezoning this property R2M.
Thank you, Commissioner Phelps. That's in the form of a motion, correct? All right. Thank you very much. May I have a second to the motion, please? I think I saw Commissioner Hickle in the queue for the second. Was that correct? I don't know. Somehow I've lost everything on my screen. All right. Okay. So, are there any objections to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, case 2012-052 is approved. Congratulations, Mr. Peterson. And, you know, I would add a comment that I am happy at last to see a B3 property rezoned for multifamily as opposed to the other way that we frequently see. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
It's the first I've ever seen.
All right. Please put that on the record. Thank you. Yes. Commissioner Parks, do you have Ms. Cusco's cell phone number by any chance? We believe she's left the building. Yeah. Nothing for you guys. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, there are no appearance requests because appearance requests have to be in writing. There are no reports from the chair at this particular point in time. We are going to adjourn to have a Title 21 continue our work session. However, we're trying to locate a consultant to see if she might be available.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Can we speak on the Commissioner's comments now before we adjourn?
Yes.
Okay. We had a meeting with staff at noon today, and this was on the land use plan map. We were the subcommittee that was appointed to actually review the land use plan map with staff. I think we came out with a better understanding of the situation. Frankly, what I'm concerned with in this whole process of the plan map is, frankly, developing the districts, approving the districts, but not having a realistic understanding of what the land use is according to the plan map. And the issue for me is to what degree, if we pass these districts, will we basically shoot ourselves in the foot? I mean, I can say it better than that, I suppose, but it gets the point across. And what I learned today is that the intent of the administration is to not, I'll use the good words again, not push necessarily or mandate a movement into these new districts. What we heard instead was that the intent was for the administration to either have people come forward specifically asking for these new zones, or if they were going to initiate a rezoning, that they would work with the community in terms of actually moving toward a different zone. So I think what I'm getting is the sense that it's possible for us to work on the districts, the zoning districts, and still maintain the capability, if we wish to identify areas in the plan map that may be different with what they actually are recommending right now, and may be of the old categories of residential, industrial, because they haven't dropped any districts out that would be essential to us. They have dropped some districts out, but they're not used, like D2, for example. I think there was one use of B4. So I think because they have allowed for the current districts to remain, that we have the ability to move forward on these districts without prejudicing the land use map. What I was really concerned about also was an inclusion of a statement actually inside the code that would deal with some of these issues of how the administration is going to actually implement the new zoning districts. I feel much better now about having the discussion with staff because it seems like it's more discretionary than it is mandatory. And if it's discretionary and people want to use these districts, I don't have too much of a concern. Where I have a concern is that where it's mandated that they follow these districts. And folks, you want to chime in as well?
Yeah, Commissioner Hickle?
Yeah, Bruce actually requested that they come up with some language to set out in the code parameters of how this voluntary action would come about. And so how that language is written is to be determined. But if something's in there that clarifies as far as the policy or such, that the property owners or the areas are encouraged to use certain aspects or zoning, but they're not forced to use the zoning they're currently entitled to at this point. I hope that made sense.
Commissioner Parks?
I guess one of my concerns when I listened to the different zoning changes that we're looking at is right now we can do mixed use. We don't have to have a mixed use district. We can do that on property today. Why would we want to limit property to only one use, a mixed use, if you will, when it could already be done on the zoning that's out there today? We can already do that. Is there a methodology behind that I'm just not getting?
Well, maybe you're right. I don't have enough knowledge to know that, in fact, you can do it with existing districts. I had presumed that we were not able to do it because otherwise I would be recommending these changes. So it's been my presumption that these changes are necessary to allow for mixed use. Apparently, I'm in error.
Here's my major concern. My major concern is that when we go into a new land map and we have so many different zoning areas that we could do, that they're going to identify property as that. And when that happens is that when somebody comes in and asks for a rezone that doesn't meet the land zone map, such similar to what we had tonight in the commission, there's going to be an issue that says that doesn't meet the land map requirements. That's multi-use. It's whatever the new zoning areas are. Therefore, that doesn't meet our plan. That's my major concern. It limits the scope. I'm more concerned about that than anything. It's the changes. It's the exceptions, not the rules.
Well, I think I agree with you. I'm hoping that with the language we're going to get from staff, we'll be able to identify the intent of the implementation of this. And the other thing that we learned today is that there is no, if a new applicant wants to come in and request, for example, B1A or B3, traditional B1A or B3, they can do that. And I think that we would have to then be concerned when we adopt the land use plan map to indicate that this district, whatever this district is an indication of the type of use, and another zoning district may be acceptable inside that particular district. Because in the plan map, it's going to say commercial. It's not going to make a distinction, I don't think, between the various types of commercial. So insofar as you have a generalized indication of what type of land use to use, you're probably okay. Where I was concerned is that, kind of similar to yours, was that we have all these new districts in the plan map, and I don't know necessarily I don't know that I feel comfortable with all those changes. I'll say it that way. And I would feel better with fewer changes rather than more changes. And so the question that I had to staff was, well, if we adopt these districts, does that mean that we're more or less obliged to have a plan map following those? And the answer I got back was no. You can have whatever you wish to have on the plan map. So, for example, if we didn't like mixed commercial on the plan map, we could say commercial. We could say general commercial. So I think there's ways that we can actually deal with this particular issue that would preserve our options and still allow us to move forward on the districts that we have in front of us right now. The problem we have is we have to move forward in some way. And this is a way I think that we can move forward and still preserve flexibility and not hurt ourselves in the process.
Commissioner Wilson first, and then Commissioner Hickle.
I still go back to the concern that we started with, which was we don't have a land use map against which to benchmark the meaning of new language and new districts. If we had it in front of us, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. And that's my concern. It's the cart before the horse.
Well, actually, I agree with you. This has been something I've been harping on for probably at least 4 or 5 years, but, we are where we are right now, unfortunately.
Commissioner Hickle?
It was my understanding that the land use map was going to be a guidance tool, not a governing tool. That's what I understood when I walked out there today, and that if there was going to be a rezone, that there was going to be a public process, of which if the administration wanted to do it, they would have to go to the assembly and have a public process to change an existing zoning, and that the planned use map could be modified. And so if you could verify what I understand is that we could pass Title 21 and the existing zoning would stay. The administration would have the ability to use a plan map to go initiate a zoning through a public process, but there's no language in there saying that everything so far has been voluntary. And so all we asked for is some language in there that said that the intent is to have Title 21 and the existing zonings stay where they're going to be, and then the plan map could be amended or changed, but it was a guideline. Anyway, that's what I got out of it, but we just wanted language to back that up.
The other thing that I thought was important, too, is that if we go through the review of the land use plan map and we find that we don't like certain districts or aspects of the district, that it be clear when we go through this adoption process, we have the ability of going back and changing the districts if we need to. And that's the problem we're in right now. We should have had the plan map first and all the districts afterwards. And I don't know what to say. We are in the situation we are. And so if we want to move forward, we have two choices, I think. Either A, you can strip out all the mixed-use zones. That's a possibility. Or B, you can go forward with the zones, but you have to be able to ensure that if rezonings occur, it's really on the initiative of the individual as opposed to the administration. And that there be some ability on the part of the Commission to change the districts if we have to as a result of the approval of a land use plan map that comes out a lot differently than what we see right now.
So just let me try to wrap my head around this. So are you saying that, let's just take a district as an example. So we might as well take the one that's fairly controversial, which is the I-1 district. So are you saying that staff is telling us that the retail in the I-1 district can remain
No, I don't think they're saying that. I think that's something that we have to deal with. But here's the way I would change it differently. Let's say, for example, we thought the area should be commercial rather than industrial, which is a possibility, right? Do we have the ability to identify on the land use plan map that it's commercial, like we have right now? The answer would be yes, we have the ability to do that. And if you want to create a B3 zone for that area, you could, because they haven't removed the B3 zone.
But who would, I guess my concern is, well, that's different than what I heard you than what I thought I understood. I thought I understood that all the districts would remain the same. But then if the property owner wanted to change his zone, he could, but he would have to file for a rezone and come to this commission.
Sure.
And he would have to pay a fee.
Yeah, he'd have to go through a rezoning.
So is it the other way around? Is it that the new district is the one that's applicable, and if he wants to change back to the old district, he has to pay a fee? Or is it the old district, and if he wants to change to the new, then he would have to pay a fee?
Well, I think the answer in both cases, he has to pay a fee, because that's the way the code's written. It's a rezoning. So if he wants to go to the new district, he can. My understanding is if he wants to go to the old new district, which is B3, he could as well, too.
So is there a grandfathering period of time when the old zoning district remains applicable, and then the new one kicks in?
The existing zoning districts remain applicable until changed. So if they're, yeah.
So, well, that doesn't, until changed by the land use map, or changed by?
Changed by the individual who wants the zoning change. That's when it changes. Just because you adopt a land use map doesn't mean a damn thing. What it means is that you have a different approach in terms of how you want the area to develop. But in terms of the private property rights the individual has, let's make believe he has B3, right? No, let's make it R2. He wants to go to B3. He still has R2 forever, as near as I can tell. If he wants to go to B3, he could. If he wants to go to a mixed commercial, he could as well, too. That's his choice.
Well, that's a lot different than what my prior understanding was. I guess I would just have to see that in writing, and we have lots of people in the queue. Commissioner Hickel, then Wilson, and Parks.
I too had the same concept until I got out of that meeting. And so that's why we asked for some more clarification. And I asked the question about I-1 zoning in that specific area to Tom. And I said, I have a real problem with that, because you're in effect putting these properties in limbo, and it's not fair to put these people in that position for an indefinite amount of time. And his response to me, and I don't want to quote him directly, was that staff would probably recommend that go away. That provision, or that they wouldn't force a industrial only in that area.
Well, I guess we'll see. Commissioner Wilson?
I kind of like to see things in writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that your comment? All right, Commissioner Parks?
I can think of a couple areas where I can see this as a major issue. And one of those would be in a rezoning of an area like a trailer park at the corner of Muldoon Road and DeBar. Trailer park was removed. If that was designated as a town center, we have a junior high in there now and a new fire station being built. They have not sold any of that property for mixed use in that area at all, because the market won't support it. But there's an absolute possibility that if you had the zoning that we have or being proposed, that they would not have the flexibility in that particular case. I'm concerned about it into the future, not just what's out there today, when you start redeveloping some of these properties that are going to be issues. We have a lot of it in Spenard, trailer parks that are going to be obsolete very quickly, and they are now residential. They should be commercial. There's some on Arctic and Benson in that area, right up against the road, they're going to have the same issue there. So I understand what you're saying about things that are already zoned, but when the land use map comes out and those are identified as mixed-use areas, which they will be, in my opinion, I think that's, what the idea of the land use map is at this point, I think it'll have a huge effect on what happens and how the lands are developed. I think the market should bear what those lands should be used at, much like what's happened at the intersection of Minnesota and the AC couplet. Those are truly commercial pieces of property to be developed into, call it big box, call it retail, call it what you want, but it's not I property, in my opinion, just because of the way the roadways are built. So I think the problem is bigger than just what you do with existing property wants to be rezoned. I think when you start looking at the land use map for redevelopment is where you're going to see the issue. And that's my concern as a developer. When you look at those kind of things, you have to be concerned what's in the future, not just for today.
Commissioner Mulcahy?
Yeah, I think I had the same understanding that you came away from today's meeting with, that the imposition of the land use plan, the reclassifications, doesn't affect the landowners unless they voluntarily ask for it. It's not, the administration doesn't impose it. With the exception that I'm fairly sure that I was told that unless that property changes ownership. At the time of ownership change, then it is mandatory. And that was made clear just as recently as last week. So that would be, yeah, I'd like clarification, because I was fine with you up till that point. So something, I either misread something or you did, or the story's changed.
No, the districts run with the land. And so if you have R2, and R2 remains in the code, that's the caveat, okay? Until you rezone, you have R2. It's not going to change. It runs with the land. If you have a new owner, it's still R2. Doesn't change. Only changes with a rezoning. And the issue, I think, is the administration going to impose these new standards upon an individual through an area-wide rezoning, which they have the possibility of doing, by the way? Or are we going to use a different approach, which is we're going to be not coercive, and we're going to facilitate development such that the individual has a choice in terms of what he wants his property to be rezoned to? I mean, that's up to him. It could be B3 or whatever the new district is. You have the choice. And so the issue to me was, are we going to retain some of the old districts in such a way that if people want to continue to use those districts, they can do so? And the answer I was getting back is that yes. And my review of the code comes out the same answer. Yeah, they haven't taken away things that are really important. To get to the issue of the plan map, it's actually our responsibility, Planning Commission responsibility, to look at that plan map and make the determinations as to what is appropriate in a lot of areas. And we may, and you folks have probably better experience about some of the stuff than I do, make a determination that an area should not be town center. It could be commercial, for example. It was identified for many, many, many years, it still is, as being a commercial area as opposed to something else. So the commission has the responsibility for looking at that plan map and making those recommendations that to us make sense, whatever that is, and I don't know yet.
There's no one else in the queue right now, so let me fill in for a little bit. It's not just the district per se that concerns me, it's the use for the district and the restrictions placed on the district for, say, for example, R3, which, currently you can build, say, small lot, single-family homes on R3, but in the new zone, you would not be allowed to do that. So how does that work?
I haven't got down to that level of detail yet.
Well, I think the devil is in the details, actually, in terms of the side yard setback requirements for specific zones and what you can do in specific zones and, all of those issues, which, really, quite frankly, I'm still of the opinion that we should set that aside because, we don't have the economic study, we don't have the land use map, and, until I see something in writing that actually would preserve all of the existing districts and their uses. I think this is our greatest exposure, our greatest legal and economic exposure in this entire Title 21 rewrite, quite frankly. Commissioner Hickle.
I still walked out of there, but when I walked out of there, I was told that these rezones, or if the zoning did change, it would be voluntary. But Terry brought up, and I felt like we were in the clear if we had that in writing. But Terry brought up the fact that for long term, for redevelopment, say you're stuck with a junky zoning that you never liked to begin with, and then they overlay a zoning district that doesn't work. Then are you fighting an uphill battle? And that's where I did not foresee a problem in the zoning map.
Well, I think that is a real issue. Let's just take a case that we had tonight, for example. Let's take the Peterson case, where they're actually doing a down zone, what would be considered a down zone. Would they be allowed to do that in the new Title 21 rewrite? But they would be subject to the R2, whatever it is, district.
That's right.
They would lose what is currently R2M, and they would be subject to whatever the equivalent new R2M would be, subject to the new requirements as far as it might be to setbacks and all that sort of thing, even though they have owned the property for 7 years, and its economic value, even in a down zone, could be impacted by the new districts. Yes?
Yeah, I'm not trying to argue that the best solution is to go ahead with a plan map. That's not my argument. My argument is if the question is there a way of moving forward on the districts if we wish to, I think there's a way of doing that. We have not come to the conclusion yet that we're going to use these districts. That's a separate issue that's subsequent to this. I was not trying to answer that issue this afternoon.
Have provided quite a bit of clarity, and we'll look forward to seeing what's in writing.
Yeah.
I mean, really, seriously, it sounds like you made some progress and headway. You were there, Ray was there, Stacy, were you there? Do you have any comments you'd like to add?
Yeah, I came away with the same impression as Bruce and Ray. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. All right, good. Are there any other comments? Did anyone do the economic thing? The economic committee? No one was able to put that together. Dana went?
I believe Dana was the only one that went to that.
Okay.
He was
All
the
right.
only available.
Okay. Stacy?
I am going back to the committees.
Yeah.
I'm on the Citizen Air Quality Committee, which is part of AMATS.
Mm-hmm.
And we covered carbon monoxide and particulate in the air the other day.
Oh, good.
Carbon monoxide's, really become much less of a problem here. We just don't have the problem that we used to have with engines not running as efficiently. Particulate in the air is pretty much something we can't control because so much of it is from the glacial silt in the air, springtime dust. And that was what the meeting was about. It was mostly biologists and chemists that were in the meeting, so it's been a while since I've had biology and chemistry.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for your attendance. We appreciate it very much, and thank you very much for the report.
And I also did Merrill Field Master Plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
We had a meeting last week, and that's coming along nicely. I think it's different because it's owned by the city. It's not owned by the state, so the planning process is going to be a lot more interactive with the city than when we worked with the international airport. So that's going to be a different process. Merrill Field isn't as busy as it used to be.
Really?
Yeah, it's a lot less busy.
Why is that?
The recession, a lot of people sold their planes. Yeah, fuel prices are high. People aren't just going out and doing touch and goes and practicing like they used to, that kind of thing. Just not taking off for a Saturday afternoon flight to see the area. But yeah, it should be interesting. There was several people there complaining about the noise. That's always an issue for the airport. But yeah,
Okay, thank you very much. Any other committee reports? All right. Okay, do I have a motion for adjournment? Commissioner Wilson, is this your last act?
I take pleasure.
All right, thank you very much. Seconded by Commissioner Parks. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.
So are we reconvening to